Hey guys, welcome back to The Mind of Brandon, and welcome back to some more Zeitgeist discussion. So, to recap, in last week's video, we talked about how, regardless of what debunkers were saying, it turns out that Zeitgeist is actually right about Horus being a sun god. But does that mean that Zeitgeist is right about everything? And what about all the parallels it points out between Horus and Jesus?
Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be debunking the movie Zeitgeist. So basically the movie Zeitgeist was released in 2007. It's a conspiracy theory movie, and the whole first part of the movie, the first 50 minutes of it, is trying to assert that the story of Jesus is completely fabricated. The story of Jesus actually originated among pagan gods, specifically mostly Egyptian gods, well before Jesus' time. They tried saying that there are plenty of other gods that were born of virgins on December 25th, had 12 disciples, crucified, they use the word crucified, died for 3 days and rose again. And they tried making a claim that there's hundreds of gods before Jesus that did so. So let's go and check it out. Let's start with the first god, Horus, which is supposed to be the sun god from 3000 BC.
This is Horus. He is the sun god of Egypt of around 3000 BC. Broadly speaking, the story of Horus is as follows. Horus was born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary.
Alright, so this is the first fabricated lie that Zeitgeist tries to use. Horus was not born on December 25th. Horus was actually born around August.
Yeah, except that when the Egyptians first started celebrating the birth of Horus, the month of August didn't even exist. It hadn't been invented yet. Right? Don't get me wrong, it's totally okay to translate from an ancient calendar to a modern one. I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of the fact that we've been through different calendars, right? The Gregorian calendar that we presently use here in the United States is actually originally a Roman calendar, which was adapted from an even earlier Roman calendar known as the Julian calendar, which also was adapted from an earlier Roman calendar that had 10 months on it instead of 12. In fact, that's actually why the month of December has the prefix Deca. Deca as in 10. Originally it was the 10th month, not the 12th, and of course there was no month of August on it. Now, the point here is, just as the Romans went through all these different calendars, switching around when certain festivities took place, well, the Egyptians did that too. In fact, even different debunkers have pointed out different birthdays associated with Horus in their attempts to debunk this December 25th parallel. Some of them have pointed out his epagamental birthday at the end of the Egyptian year, whereas others have pointed out his birthday in the Egyptian month of Koyak. But I should point out that sometimes the difference between one birthday and another has to do with what kind of birth does it represent. Is it the birth of a babe, or is it the rebirth of an adult? In the words of Egyptologist Gerald Massey, the double birth of Horus at the two times, or the birth of the babe in the winter solstice, and the rebirth as the adult in the Easter equinox, is acknowledged in the Egyptian Book of the Divine Birth. The celebration of the Nativity at the solstice is referred to in the calendar Edfu. Now, notice how Massey is actually citing primary sources here, which I mentioned because he's a reference that's often shat all over by Zeitgeist debunkers, who often stoop to making personal attacks on his credibility.
Gerald Massey, English poet and amateur Egyptologist. Not an expert, not an academic, not actually an historian at all.
Says the guy who didn't even know Horus was a sun god. He calls Massey an amateur Egyptologist and says he's not even a historian. But Professor Forbes himself is not even an Egyptologist, and he doesn't even address the archaeological evidence that Massey cites. Gerald Massey closely worked with and was peer-reviewed by the leading Egyptologists of his day. And Horus's birthday around the time of the winter solstice is something that even ancient scholars sometimes talk about. For example, Plutarch, who tells us, "It is said that Isis, when she perceived that she was pregnant, put upon herself an amulet on the 6th day of the month of Phalphi, and about the time of the winter solstice, she gave birth to Harpocrates, imperfect and premature." Harpocrates, of course, is a version of Horus, represented in the form of a child. According to Egyptologist Bojana Mojsov, the symbol of the savior child was the eye of the sun newly born every year at the winter solstice. And, Professor Orlando Schmidt explains, as the son of the Sothiac year reached the winter solstice, in the 17th year of the reign of King Amenemhes I, he assumed the title of Nemestu, meaning reborn, in commemoration of his birth as Harpocrates. So there's actually a pretty solid case that can be made for this December 25th birthday parallel. But the truth is, I've really only just scratched the surface in this video. If you guys want to see a more thorough approach, I recommend checking out D.M. Murdoch's Christ in Egypt, the Horus-Jesus Connection. D.M. Murdoch is another one of the Zeitgeist references that has been just shat all over by the debunkers. But this book is basically a response to those debunkers. And I gotta say, I think she did a really good job with it. Well, for the most part. Even I don't agree with all of her conclusions. I do think that some of the parallels that get pointed out are kind of a stretch. Maybe blowing things out of proportion a bit. But in my investigation of this subject, I've determined that regardless of what Zeitgeist might be wrong about, it's certainly nowhere near as full of crap as the debunkers are making it out to be.
Basically, what's going on is Zeitgeist is trying to compare Horus with the Christmas story of Jesus. The reason why I say Christmas story is because there is absolutely no mention of Jesus ever being born on December 25th. That's just a Christmas tradition.
He says, completely missing the point, that Christmas is basically just a Christianized hijacking of a pagan winter solstice celebration. Just as so many other things have been handed down to Christian tradition from pagan tradition, the same is true of Christmas. So it seems that so far, Zeitgeist has been right about Horus being a sun god, and it has been right about Horus having a birthday associated with the winter solstice. But this doesn't mean that Zeitgeist is going to be right about everything. What about this claim that Horus was born of the Virgin Isis Mary? Is Zeitgeist right about that? Well, if you guys want to know, you're just going to have to watch my next video. So, to be continued, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with other people. If you're interested in watching my future videos, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next one. So have a good one, guys, and peace.